Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where real people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best life. I'm Michelle Scharf.
And I am Jennie Taylor, and I'm going to introduce you to a woman on the other end of the phone, Tabitha Farmer. Say hello, Tabitha.
Hello.
And this woman, I've only ever met her in person twice. Both times it was in Washington, D.C., About a month or two ago, she and I were there with our children being part of the National Memorial Day Parade. But the time we met was a Memorial Day back a couple of years in 2019 when we met in the White House, where she and I were both there with our children being honored after having both recently lost our husbands in Army service and war. So, Tabitha, I'm sorry that I know you. I mean, I think that's kind of the first introduction we always have. We wouldn't know each other if we hadn't both lost our military husbands, and yet I'm grateful I know you, because in the short time I have known you and been connected with you through social media and things, I've learned quite a bit and really been inspired. So thank you for joining us today. And will you let us and our listeners get to know you a little? Can you introduce us to you, your family, your husband John? Tell us a little about the Farmer family.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me, and honestly, it's an honor to meet you, and you're inspiring to me. I was flabbergasted when I found out that you had 7 children. I was like, how many does she have?
That's what I say every day. How many do I have? 7? Oh my gosh.
Okay. I thought my 4 were a lot, but okay, she takes the cake. She's got it. It's good.
Nah, you trump it because you have twins. I kept saying, okay, I'll have another baby, but I'm having one at a time. So tell us about your sweet family.
I was married to Chief Warrant Officer 2 Johnathan Farmer. We have 4 beautiful babies, Betsy, Devin, Preston, and Priscilla, who are 6-year-old twins. It would have been our 12th anniversary that July in 2019. He was killed in Manbij, Syria, by a suicide bomber along with 3 other Americans. A total of 25 people were killed in the incident. So it was all over the news, and he was Special Forces. So the hardest part for me, honestly, was seeing his face everywhere, because with OPSEC, which is, I don't know what it stands for.
Operational Security. I do know that one. Yes. Operational Security, called OPSEC.
Okay. So for OPSEC, we always try to never use his name. I never had his face fully on like any Instagram or Facebook. I was very discreet. People actually thought we were divorced because I never mentioned him. They're like, "Are you okay? How are you doing? How has it been since you got divorced?" I'm like, "We're still married. We still love each other."
But his service required him to live. His service required him to live kind of a quiet life.
Yes, they're known as the quiet professionals for a reason. So, and he took that very seriously, because he also wanted to go into the FBI after his 20-year stint in the military.
How did you meet? Back up even before this. Was he always in the military at the time you met him? Was it love at first sight?
No,
how did it start?
We met between his junior year and senior year of college, and his cousin was my best friend all in high school. And his cousin Carl kept telling me, "You need to meet my cousin. You need to meet him. You guys would be perfect for each other." But I never had feelings for Carl. And I was like, "I'm not going to like your cousin. I look at you like a brother." And then I met his cousin. His brother was having a get-together. And I met John, and I still remember the first time I met him, my heart really, it just did a dunk. And I was smitten immediately and tried to act like I didn't notice him, because I couldn't speak. He was the most handsome man that I'd ever seen. And I was just done. And he finally came up to me. He might have had a couple cocktails. And so he had some bravery, he had some liquid courage. And the first words that he said to me, he ripped off his shirt and looked at me and he said, "You're beautiful and I'm strong."
That's horrible.
It was such a bad line, but it worked. And I was like, okay, act like I don't care. This is not. And so from then on, every
I
time
feel
I found
like
out
when
that
it's that soulmate person that you meet in that way, because I've heard other stories, and I feel like my husband and I had a similar kind of introduction. I almost feel like it doesn't really matter what they say. It doesn't matter how bad it is. You're going to be smitten anyway, right?
It's too late. It's too late.
It was done. I was done. So, but yeah, every time that I found out that John was going to be somewhere doing anything, I was like, oh, I can come. I can show up. It's not a big deal. And we would stay up talking about all the things that you're not supposed to talk about, religion, politics, just all of the things. And him and I differed on some things, but I loved it. I loved hearing his point of view as to why he thought that way. And he always intrigued me. And every time I dated anybody, I compared him to John Farmer every single time, because I was like, I kept him, I flirted as badly as I possibly could without throwing my number at him. Like, he never flirted back. And I honestly, I was like, maybe he's gay. He's he's handsome. All the handsome guys are gay now. That's gotta be it.
But wait a minute. He came up to you with "You're beautiful, I'm strong," and then he didn't follow up.
Nothing.
What?
For 4 years.
What?
4 years.
4 years? This is a horrible story.
So what happened
goodness.
was his cousin Carl finally got engaged to the girl he was dating. When he told John, he was like, "Hey, I'm engaged." John said, "Congratulations. What's Tabitha's number?" He was being sweet, thinking that Carl had feelings for me, which Carl was like, "Why didn't you ask for 4 years ago when I told you to?"
Because you guys were just friends.
Oh,
like you
man.
and Carl were like brother-sister friends, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we never had.
I feel so angry at Carl for not explaining this to John. And I'm like, you robbed these guys of 4 years.
But how respectful. But on the flip side, how respectful was John that he was standing back thinking there was something, and he wasn't going to be that pushy guy or that jerk coming in to, break things up. Okay, so he finally asked for your number. Then what?
He finally asked for my number, and I flew up to meet him because, he ghosted me for a whole week one time because it sounds horrible. My dad he had stage 3 colon cancer, and the time that John was going to have off to visit me was the same week that my dad was having surgery. And so I told him, my dad's having surgery. I can come have lunch with you, but I really can't hang out because I'm going to be at the hospital. And John was like, "Oh, okay." The man did not call me the whole week.
Oh,
I was so broken and upset and angry at him. I remember I text messaged him. I was like, "I don't know what your problem is. I am not playing games. I'm deleting your number. Goodbye." And within 30 seconds, he called me back and he apologized profusely and he explained, he's like, "I thought you needed to have time with your family. I didn't want to intervene. I am so sorry. I will make up with you. How can I see you? Can you come up here? Can you come to Fort Bragg? Come see me?" And I remember the night before I left, I was ironing my pants, which I was putting into a suitcase, thinking it was the most insane thing that I was flying up to see a guy. I was like, "This is insane. I've lost my mind. This is crazy." But I went to visit him. The next day, he told me he was in love with me. And so that was August 13th. He told me he was in love with me. We were engaged by 2006.
Okay.
So, and then we were engaged on May 5th, 2007, married July 21st, 2007.
Oh, that is so sweet. So after all of those years of him being in love with you from a distance, it's like Pride and Prejudice. He's just not, it's a miscommunication that almost made the love never happen.
It was horrible. Yes.
Well, it's the hardest thing we do, right? This whole communication. And I'm starting to date again, and it is interesting. It's very difficult, right? Because if somebody doesn't follow up, it would have been so easy for him to say to her, "Well, it sounds like you really need to focus on your family. Let's do it another
time."
Yeah, I'll give you some time. Right. Let's do it the following week or whatever. But he thinks to himself, "Well, she really needs to be with her family," and doesn't communicate with you. And then you're going, "Well, what just happened?"
Well, I love how you fire back and say, "That's it, buddy. I'm deleting your number." Don't mess with Tabitha.
No. Well, he learned how to communicate very well. And I have to say, in our marriage, when he deployed, he would constantly call me and constantly text message me. He was the one husband that all the other wives were like, have you heard from them? Have they made it? And I have like 10 text messages telling me how much he loves me and he misses me and the kids. And so he made up for the lack of communication.
Well, that's awesome.
He already was in the military when you met him. He was already at Fort Bragg. That military path was already chosen.
Well, I tried to talk him out of it when we first met.
Interesting.
But he was between his junior and senior year, because I grew up, one of my uncles was a lifer in the Navy, and he was always gone, and his wife, they didn't have the happiest marriage I saw. And I was like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
That's not. And I was like, I'm never going to see this guy. I don't want him. But for selfish reasons, I tried to talk him out of it because I wanted to see him more.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy that he did not listen to me, because honestly, I think the military helped him grow up and helped him become the man that he was. And he was always a great guy, but the military made him into a man.
I love that.
And I will forever be grateful that he chose the military path. But so he graduated he graduated college, and then he went into the military. And I met him after he had gone through selection. John was an 18 X-ray, which means that he went into the military just to become Special Forces. Because sometimes, usually, guys are in the military for a couple of years, and then they go through selection to become Special Forces. Whereas John, his contract was, I want to become Special Forces, I'm going to go through boot camp, and then selection.
So he already knew that was the type of military job he was after.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so don't go too much into the military path for a quick second. Tell us about the kids. So you know each other for years. You finally get reacquainted. You get engaged. You get married. He's in the military. You have the 4 kids, it looks like, in 6 or 7 years. Where did you always live at Fort Bragg? Were there deployments in those years of babies and everything? Tell us maybe the years between Betsy was born and when the twins were born, and then we'll take it to that point for now.
He graduated from the Q course in 2007, and then we got married, and he was transferred to Fort Campbell, 5th Group, Special Forces, and that's when we got married, was when he was at Fort Campbell. And we actually never moved. As an enlisted couple, we never had to move from 5th Group. So we moved to 5th Group and stayed. And everyone's like, oh, you used to moving. I was like, I've never moved our house. It's never happened.
Which is unusual for active duty Army. I mean, most of us do think of you moving every 2 or 3 years.
Right, but not for Special Forces, not enlisted. The great thing about Special Forces is you choose your own path, kind of, too. So if you want to stay on a team for 8 years, like John did, then you stay on a team. Or if you want to branch out, then you can go and do other things, too. So it's very unique.
He chose to stay. You guys are living in Fort Campbell. You've got these 4 beautiful kids. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we want you to talk to us about John's military career and how that led him to being in Syria in 2018 and 19.
Okay.
Okay, Tabitha, so you're married to this Special Forces soldier. You're stationed in Fort Campbell with 5th Group in the Army. You're living this active duty Army life, but you as a family at least are stationary. You're staying put. Can you tell us about the years, you've now got your kids, maybe this deployment of John's, this assignment. Did he deploy several times? Was this a one-time thing? Walk us through maybe the military side of your married life.
So John, when he graduated and donned the Green Beret, he was a Charlie, which is the engineer on a 12-man team in Special Forces. So he was the guy who blew up things. And he loved that. He loved doing that. He loved his team time. And when we got married, he was like, we're doing 2 years in. I'm doing my team time. Then we're going to get out and I'm, do something else. And before, he actually had a pretty lucrative job at Merrill Lynch and was doing well for himself, but he decided he wanted to be military. So he was like, oh, I can go back to a desk job. And I was like, okay, sure,
that's going to be a
honey.
huge transition.
Oh, yeah. I was like, all righty. So we had Betsy in May of 2008. And then he was deploying again it was January 2nd. He was deploying in 2009, and I discovered I was pregnant again the day before he deployed.
Oh, my goodness.
So we had Devin in 2009, and then he actually went on 10 total deployments, 7 combat,
okay, wait,
and 3
stop
operational.
for a second. Say that again. Your husband deployed 10 times.
Yes.
7, and you said they were 7 combat and 3 were operational. That for most of the world that is not military, that is crazy. Even I'm a National Guard wife, and my husband deployed 4 times. We thought that was 100. But so in 12 years, he's gone on 10 deployments. Were they a set amount of time each time? Would it rotate? Was it kind of like you're just gone again, back again, gone again, back again?
Well, whenever they're back, they actually aren't home either. They're training. They're constantly gone. There was 1 year that he was actually, we counted up that he was home for a total of 7 days out of the year. And that wasn't together. That was us figuring out. I was like, oh, yeah, you came home. And then you changed your clothes and went back out. And then it was not 7 days together. It was 7 days total to spread out. And that was the year that I had a little, I had an issue. I was a little angry with him. I was the angry Special Forces wife. And I remember I threw his tough box. He was like, I'm deploying again. I was like, oh, you are? And I picked his tough box up, which is extremely heavy, and threw it out our front door. I was like, let me help you go. And I remember him sitting there looking at me going, how in the world did you just do that? And I remember
like sheer adrenaline, honey.
I was like, I don't think you understand what I can accomplish when I put my mind to it. And the man, I love him so much. He said, of course I do. That's why I married you. Wow. And I'm like, seriously, I had you.
Tabitha, what year? And, what year was that? What year was that when you kind of reached your breaking point as an Army wife?
I don't know. They've all meshed up.
It's like, that's fine. But it sounds like that was a period of time. It didn't last. I mean, you didn't divorce him. No. You didn't leave him. You didn't say that's it. I'm done. Oh no. So did you just need kind of to be able to vent and regroup? Or I can't imagine the exhaustion of 10 deployments in 12 years when he's home for 7 days out of 365.
Yeah. That's not a marriage.
Like I said, he worked on his communication skills. Okay. We discovered that our love language changes when he's gone. And we always made sure we put God first, then each other, then the kids. And he realized that he'd been deploying and gone to too many schools, and he took a step back. He went to that deployment, but then when he came home, he said no to other schools. He was like, I have to stay home because my wife needs me. And I saw that, and that made the world the difference to me because he turned down a lot of schools because of that.
So explain to someone like me who's a civilian, how do you keep a marriage 7 days out of a year? I'm sorry, I have no capacity for that. I could. My sister was an Army wife, and I really struggled with it. I don't understand just regular deployments, but this is excessive.
It's a lot. That's why the divorce rate in Special Forces is 99%.
Oh, my goodness.
It takes a strong marriage. It takes a strong man and a strong woman, but we have to work together. And it's hard to do that. And it takes both of them.
Because he's on Special Forces, do you have the ability to, be on an app or a video FaceTime, something secure?
Yes.
Is there... a WhatsApp? I don't know.
In order to communicate?
Yeah.
Right. No, we Skyped so much, actually, that when he came home from one deployment, our son wouldn't go near him. He had no idea who he was. He was terrified of the huge, because my husband was 6'5", beautiful, handsome man. And my son was terrified of him. Yeah. So we actually had my husband Skype downstairs, and we were upstairs on the computer, and John walked up the steps Skyping with us, and Devin looked at the computer, looked at Daddy, looked at the computer, looked at Daddy, and then he was like, oh, and that's how he figured out who Daddy was.
Yeah.
looking at the computer and looking at Daddy. We had to make that concession.
We had that with my oldest son was about 3 or 4 months old the first time my husband deployed, and he ended up being gone a year and a half on 2 back-to-back deployments, so our baby didn't know him either. And we went through that same thing. It was like Elmo had walked out of the TV and into the living room, and it terrified him.
Yeah.
He was fine to talk with him on Skype. We use Skype as well. But all right, so tell us, you've gone through this. It sounds like your husband was right when he knew that's why he married you. It does take a very special couple to make this work. You're in the 1% in the military and the 1% of special forces staying married. Can you tell us about the final deployment and leading up to that and everything that happened?
Well, in 2016, John decided to become a warrant officer, which is a very unique job in special forces because it's an enlisted guy who becomes an officer and is on the command operational team. And so he sees what the enlisted guys see. He understands their struggles. Mm-hmm. So I loved that, especially. But he also has to do all the writing that all the leadership
the
does.
Command team. Yeah, so it's the worst of both worlds.
It's the worst, and it's the worst, and also the best. So he was an operational detachment leader when they went to Syria, and this was his second time in Syria. And
when did they leave? When did he leave home?
November 27th of 2018.
Okay.
And it was actually the year before he left for Syria on November 27th of 2017.
Oh my goodness. Similar mission?
And then he came. No, different spots in Syria.
Okay. But again, this for your family, this is very normal. He gets an assignment, he goes somewhere. It's just what happens over and over again.
Yes. Well, when he came home and was telling me about as much, because I don't know anything about the missions. I don't really know a whole lot, but I remember him coming home from them talking about it and presenting it to leadership, what he wanted to do. And he was like, this is the bread and butter of special operations. He's like, this is going to be such a great mission, and we're going to accomplish so much. And he was so excited and so proud. And I remember him just being, and that's what gives me comfort when I'm sad, because he died doing exactly what he wanted to do. And that's it. It's a weird, everyone's like, how does this bring you comfort? I'm like, well, it's because this is who he was. And he loved what he did. He loved helping, and he freed the oppressed. De oppresso liber means to free the oppressed. And that is the Special Forces motto. And that's exactly what they were doing.
Very literally, that's what he was doing.
Exactly.
Oh, Tabitha, my goodness. Can you tell us about that? What does the grief journey look like? Army officers knocking on your door? Did you see it in the news? How did you know what had happened?
Well, so it was 4:52 in the morning, and I sat straight up in my bed like a bomb had gone off in my house. And I swore I heard something. I woke up and was like, my heart was beating. I was sweating, and it sounded like something went off in my house. I actually retrieved our weapon, cleared the house, and then went up to each of my children and poked them to make sure they were breathing. I was like, something's wrong. And I couldn't figure it out. I secured our weapon and then went back to bed. And I slept like before I had children. I was in the deepest sleep in the whole entire world. It was amazing. And I honestly believe that it was God having me rest before I couldn't rest anymore. Because I woke up and I was late for everything. I was supposed to be at our commander's wife's house because we were planning an FRG event. And I was so late. And I remember just yelling at the kids. I was like, just get your clothes on, freaking waffles in the car, just get it going, just go. And I dropped off the kids. It was just a weird morning. On the way home, the team sergeant's wife called me and asked me if I had seen Syria maps. So there's an app that shows you when there's a bomb, when there's a shot, when anything happens in Syria. There's an app that shows you when and where it happened.
Oh, my goodness.
The worst. It is the worst app for any military wife to look at.
Terrible app.
It is a horrible app. And I was like, what are you doing on that app? I was like, you know not to do that. Like, you know better. We're not supposed to look at that stuff, because if we look at that stuff, then
you're just going to be paranoid all the time.
Right.
Yep.
I was like, you can't. I was like, and we know where our husbands are, but we act like we don't. We're extremely intelligent women who constantly act stupid because everyone's like, where's your husband? I'm like, I don't know. Being blonde sometimes helps me. But, so I went home, I sat on my stairs, I pulled up Manbij, Syria, and I saw the explosion. I watched it over and over. I probably watched it 20 times.
Oh, my gosh.
I knew it was a special forces team just because of the mannerisms of the men and the different cars that they had. And I was just terrified. And you could see a tall guy on it. And it was either my husband or the team sergeant. And it's actually my husband. And so I went through my whole day. The kids, my twins, got out of preschool at noon, and the preschool teacher's daughter is actually our babysitter. And she was like, hey, can you bring her with you today? Because that way I don't have to drop her off for your Girl Scout meeting tonight. And I was like, yeah, not a problem. But I was like, just want you to know if anything happens, I might snap at her. Like, it's because it's not her, it's me. I'm not,
sure.
It's just.
There's a lot going on.
And so, right. And so I remember dropping Priscilla off at dance and watching her dance, and a warmth came over me, and I felt like a warmth holding my hand and just holding my heart. And it was weird. And I knew it was John. I knew at that moment that he was gone. And I was like, he's gone. I felt like someone had been following me all day because I just knew. So I was like, someone's going to be knocking on my door. If it's not my door, it's like a team wife's door. And I kept looking. I kept going different directions than I normally do just to see if someone was following me. There was a gentleman that was retiring who was on the team that was one of our connections. And I called him. I was like, I've never done this. I don't know why I'm freaking out, but all of us wives are freaking out. Have you heard from the team? Have you heard anything? And he was like, it's okay. He's like, they go black. It's fine. It's going to be okay. No news is good news. He's like, just, he's like, I'll let you know if I hear anything. He's like, just remember, no news is good news. And he's like, it's fine. He was the one following me all day. He was like 3 cars behind me at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Telling me. And his wife tells me, she's like, that was the worst moment to tell you that everything was okay, because he knew it wasn't.
But because of military protocol, he could not say otherwise, correct?
No, absolutely. No, he could not.
So it's not him lying and being a jerk to you. It's there's just certain procedures to be followed. No. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not upset with him at all.
Why was it taking so long for them to tell you?
Because there were 3 Americans in the bombing at the same time. And so when that happens, when there's multiple casualties, they have to notify the next of kin at the same time. So we had to wait. Joe Kent, who is Shannon Kent's husband, was actually in Africa at the time. And they were trying to find him because...
So they were literally following you until they could all coordinate and say, we have them. Let's go in.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
my goodness. We're going to have to take a quick break right there because everybody needs to catch their breath. And I heard you just say, Tabitha, they also had to find your in-laws because, of course, you might be the primary next of kin, but your husband has parents as well, and so would the other 3 who were killed. They might have a spouse, they might have children, they might have parents. So let's take a quick break. Let's come back. Tell us what it was when they did find you or were able to notify you and what that has looked like now for the past little over 2 years. We'll be right back. All right, Tabitha, so tell us, we know that the day John was killed, 3 other Americans were killed. Military and just American protocol is that all of you, primary next of kin, need to be notified at the same time so one family doesn't get it prior to another. The military wasn't able to immediately locate Shannon Kent's husband, Joe, because he was in Africa at the time. Can you tell us what the process looked once they finally found all 4 of you and what it was like particularly on your end?
I remember this. It's something that's forever in my memory. I was walking to my front door to pick up my Girl Scout leader bag, and I saw their shadows outside, and I screamed at my babysitter to take all the kids upstairs, and that they couldn't hear this. I was like, they can't hear this yet. And I remember going to the door and opening it and them asking if I was Tabitha Farmer, the wife of Chief Warrant Officer 2, John Farmer. And I said yes. And all I could hear was, I'm sorry. And I fell. And I've always been so strong. I always said I was never going to fall. I was never going to cry that much. And I couldn't stand. I couldn't breathe. And I remember the chaplain's eyes were deep ocean blue. And they had tears in his eyes. And I was like, he's hurt. He can't talk. Is that it? And I remember early in the day, I actually pulled out my passport in case I could go to Germany. But he said no, and that he was gone. And once I finally stood up, I asked them where the team sergeant's wife was, because we always fill out a packet before the guys leave. And they're like, I'm sorry, she couldn't be here because she's not allowed to know before you do. And so, honestly, I'm trying to fix that within the Army, that when we fill something out and we're expecting something, it's just like them going on a mission. We have a mission set. We have it figured out in our heads. This is what's going to happen. This is going to happen. That was really hard for her not to be there right then, because in my head, she was going to be there. But I remember sitting down and just being numb. I don't remember a whole lot from that day. My CAO was introduced to me. He was a 30-year-old captain, and he looked terrified. And he
so
kept
Tabitha,
having to
for
ask me,
those who don't know the military culture very well, a CAO is a casualty assistance officer. So it's an Army officer assigned to your family to walk you through this horrific process that not only involves the grief and the emotion of the worst loss of your life, but also a lot of paperwork and red tape and military protocol. So tell us, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just kind of wanted to point that out.
No.
Bless that sweet captain who, just got to take a drink out of the fire hose.
Seriously, I just felt so bad. I was like, oh, my goodness. And the poor gentleman, he was just doing his job. And I actually still really good friends with him. I was blessed with a really good CAO for my first one. I've had to have a couple just because he had to move away. So they have to have lives too. But the question he kept asking me over and over again was if I would allow publicity at Dover. And John was such a sweet husband. He tried to shelter me from so many things of the military that he knew I would be upset about, because this was my greatest fear. Losing him was my biggest fear in the world. So I know he always tried to shelter me from things. I had no idea that they came into Dover until my husband did. I felt like the worst Army wife. I was like, how did I not know this? But I remember him asking me over and over again. I was like, I'm not signing anything. I know this is your job, but you can go tell them I'm not signing anything until I can breathe. And then I had the team wives come and just help take care of me. I had 2 particular amazing friends of mine who unfortunately have had to go through this with other Special Forces wives. So they kind of knew what was going to happen. And they wrote everything down, everything that was said, everything that I needed to do so that I could answer eventually. It was the longest process. And I really believe that the CAO need to have more training. My CAO did a great job, but I also felt bad because I had 3 CAOs. And my second one was also a captain of an active ODA, which is Special Forces team. And I felt like I was taking time from the team, which is, for Special Forces life, I never wanted to take time from the team. I never wanted to be priority. Does that make sense? I didn't want to.
Right. Yeah.
So this is something that I am trying to help tweak and fix and make better for the next family and for the next for the other CAOs because they're trying to do their job, but there's only so much.
I felt the same way about our CAO. He's a wonderful man who was, became like a little brother to me and was so helpful.
Right.
But he didn't really know what he was doing. And I certainly didn't know what I was doing. And we're figuring it out as we go, which is a hard time to figure something out when there's all of that paperwork accompanying all that emotion.
And you have no ability to function. Your brain is not working.
Well, like you said, I can't sign papers if I can't breathe. I'm sorry.
Right.
So tell us.
I can't think straight.
Tell us those first few weeks and months. It's now been a little over 2 years. How, to meet you and to talk with you, you're this beautiful, positive, almost glowing with light woman, and yet you've been through something darker than most people can imagine. Can you share that journey with us? I mean, I wish we had hours, but in a few minutes, can you kind of share that journey with us?
Well, I discovered I have a very dark widow's humor.
Oh, so do we.
We are now just best friends.
I can't wait till you come to Utah. We'll take you to lunch.
It's something that I don't wish upon anybody, but once you become a widow, the worst things are like, before John died, I would have been appalled. Now I laugh hysterically. And I'm like, I'm going to hell. John will come save me because I'm laughing at this. This is not appropriate. And that's how I'm dealing with it, because we always try to find humor in every day and silver lining in everything. John always watched redemption movies, and he always loved Hoosiers and Field of Dreams. And I honestly feel like I'm stuck in the middle of like the really sad part of the movie that everybody's at. And that's what I keep envisioning, that I'm just stuck in that really sad part, and it's starting to get better. Like, it's starting, I'm able to breathe again. The sun is beautiful again. Right. Food is finally starting to taste good, and I want to go on adventures with the kids again. Because before I was like, I will just sit here and eat soup every day and never do anything ever again. That was like the first week. And honestly, I felt like I was doing the cha-cha. I still feel like I'm doing the cha-cha, where I take 2 steps forward and like 10 steps back. Yeah. And I'm a really bad dancer, apparently. But
how about the kids? I know that's the worst question ever. How are the kids?
Yeah.
How do you help the kids? How do the kids help you?
Well, we have our ups and downs, like everybody. When we're having a really bad day, we sit on the couch and we snuggle. We eat all of Daddy's favorite things. We also work out together because John loved working out and he loved basketball. There's a Special Forces alumni group called Chapter 38. I asked them for a slab and a basketball hoop in our backyard, and they built us a whole
I love that.
full court. They built it with
okay,
2
you have
hoops.
to share pictures. You have to share pictures. My kids and I have like basketball therapy too. We have some neighbors in our neighborhood that have a big slab next to their house, and they let the neighbor kids come over. And it's funny how we can yell at each other and argue and have a really hard day, and then it's like, hey, let's go to the court. Let's go shoot hoops. And
absolutely.
It's really therapeutic. I love that. I want to see pictures. I'm so grateful that group did that for you guys. That's wonderful.
You love going out there because John played basketball in college and all through high school and all through college.
I did not know that.
And actually Trump was the one who became, like, I thought I was going to have to tell President Trump. I got to meet him at Dover first time, and he was so kind and he was so sweet, and he actually told me about my husband. And I was shocked and in awe. And I thought I was going to have to like sit down and tell him all the things. Nope. He was like, I hope you understand your husband is a hero and a warrior. He's like, the mission that he was on was phenomenal, and it would have changed the direction of everything. He's like, and it is actually, he's like, because of their death, it's changing the direction of the war and the fight against ISIS. He's like, I hope you understand.
Gosh, Tabitha, that's
everything.
Beautiful.
I don't agree with him on everything.
Sure.
But
he got John right.
Yeah. Well, and I don't agree with John on everything. Only Jesus. So, there's only one man that I'm ever going to agree with everything. So, but that really helped. And then also I was able to speak to a couple of people in Syrian officers who told me, they're like, we wish it was 100 of our officers and our military and not your husband.
Oh, wow.
And that meant a world to me. And they also made a big sign they had a picture of everybody who was killed, and John was in the middle and the biggest. And that spoke volumes to me because he helped restore the water and electricity to Manbridge and helped start a girls' school in the little time that he was there, because he deployed November 27th and he was killed January 16th.
That is so quick.
So it was, he did a lot, and it meant so much to me, more to me than anything else, that the people there cared a lot about him.
Right.
And it shows who he was.
And that they appreciated what he was doing there. I mean, his service,
right.
His service was valued. His service was appreciated and needed. Tabitha, I love you. I wish you were here closer and we could go to lunch. We could get our kids together. I can't tell you how much I've learned from you. Again, here I am thinking I know what it's like to be a military wife, and realizing in this conversation I have no idea. Your experience has been so different, so unique. But thank you for loving God and John enough to let him go to war and protect not just America, but really democracy and freedom everywhere. I mean that not as a fellow Gold Star widow, but just as a grateful American. You know, the cheesy phrase, on behalf of a grateful nation. I hope you feel that. I hope God has sent that spirit to you and your children. That there are lots and lots of people like me who are so sorry for your loss, but so grateful for your service. And we thank you for being willing to send him to war so many times, for being willing to send him to training whenever he wasn't at war, and for still loving him, for loving him enough to share him and to send him. And just know that our hearts are with you and those sweet 4 kids. And I love hearing that you're starting to learn to laugh again and to see the light, that you're getting out there and working out, and that some days you're just sitting on the couch snuggling with a bunch of daddy's favorite treats. I love that it's both. It's not like, okay, we're done, pack that grief up and move forward to the basketball court. It's everything.
No.
It's everything.
It's every day.
It's ongoing.
Every day. It's waves. It comes in waves. And and it's weird because I keep falling deeper in love with him. And so
same.
Do
you feel like you know him better?
Yeah, I know so much more. And after the weekend at USASOC, I was able to witness a team of Special Forces gentlemen clear a house, and they blew a door, cleared the house, and blew another door, and then they did it again. But they were so concise and slow, and every action they had like 10 thoughts behind it. And I started crying, not because I was scared or anything. It was because I understood John so much more, and I loved him so much more. I was like, how am I falling deeper in love with him? You know, you're doing for his wife when hearing shots and doors blowing up makes you cry and fall in love deeper with your husband.
But it's like, I love that you had that opportunity. It's almost like you got to put on his combat boots for just a minute and to see from his perspective the great work, the effort, the precision, the dedication that he and his fellow special operators have put into literally, decades. These quiet professionals who put on their uniform, go to work, no fanfare, but serious precision and dedication. All right, Tabitha, what can you tell us about resilience? What does resilience mean to you?
I was actually reminded by a wonderful lady this weekend, Faith Phelps, who works at USASOC, that one of the main things about Special Forces is perseverance. And it just resonated with me because I was like, yes, I'm just going to keep going. And if I find a closed door, I'm going to go around the corner. I'm going to find the open door. I'm going to keep moving forward and keep going forward, just like John did and just like all of our Army actually does. They constantly are moving forward, constantly trying to find the next door open when they have a door shut on them. And I just was like, that's right. That's exactly how I feel right now. I was like, perseverance just means to keep going, just keep finding the solution and never take no for an answer.
Wow, I love that.
I love that, too.
I love that. Looking at
okay?
No, it wasn't okay. It was fantastic. If I find a closed door, I'm going to keep going until I find an open door. How beautiful is that? Thank you, Tabitha. We love you. We're so grateful for you, and we're praying for you and those sweet kids, and sending all the good vibes. And I don't know who your basketball team of choice is, but we're big Utah Jazz fans here, so I don't know if that puts you as the Memphis Grizzlies or what. But Someday we'll have to get together and maybe our kids can have like a 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 tournament in the backyard or something. So
that sounds awesome. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being with us. I've cried probably 4 or 5 times during this episode. So very touching. And thank you for not only John's service, like we give thanks to him for his service and his sacrifice, but the sacrifice and service that you've given to our country as well, and being a wife to him. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, he made loving him easy. So
yeah. Oh, such.
I love
except
that.
for that 1 year when
Except for that 1 year when it was really hard to love him.
Yeah.
Oh, well, because we loved him so much, we wanted to see him more.
Yeah.
That was it. It wasn't, and the word divorce never ever crossed our minds.
No, it's just we need to recalibrate.
Yeah. And we went on marriage retreats, and so it was like changing the tires and, just maintenance.
Yep.
We did lots of marriage maintenance, and that meant a lot to us.
It sounds like your approach to it was able to help you or let you make these trials and these hardships actually make you stronger as a couple. And I think that, we could have a whole other conversation about the value there is in that in marriage.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We're grateful for your story. We're grateful for our listeners. If you like what you've heard today, we'd love if you'd give us a rating and a review. Any comments you have or feedback on Tabitha's great story. And if you're listening and you or someone you know has a real story about real life that you're willing to share, please send us an email at rrpodcast@ksl.com or find us on Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient or Instagram at Relentlessly Resilient Podcast.
Remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles others are dealing with in their own lives. Have a great day.